Alright, we're live. Okay. Cool. Just playing this game again for... I don't know what number this makes as far as like how many times I play it, but screw it. Still good every time.
Flesh, bone, bound together with the oddest magical incantation. This wretched book is where it all began so long ago. Before time, before humanity. I am Dr. Edward Roivas. I am a clinical psychologist. I am also dead. This is not my story, nor even the story of the Roivas family. It is the story of humanity. Like it or not, believe it or not, as you will. Your perceptions will not change reality, but simply color it. Humanity has been on the edge of extinction for 2 millennia, ignorant of so much and dependent on so few. The Guardians grow restless, their time once again near. Whether by fate or misfortune, my family has crossed their path, and they didn't take kindly to it. Their attention turns to my granddaughter, for she is the last of my line, and the last hope for humanity.
Alright. 1 head. 2 head. 3 head. 4. That's 5. Oh yeah. Only 6 shots to work with. Hey, thanks, Wrath. Hopefully it's making the image look well enough, because I spent pretty much, I'm pretty sure, like the last 24 hours just tinkering with this thing to see if it looked good enough for my eyes. Oh yeah, the wave bird. I'm not playing with that one right now, though. I've just got a good old wired controller, but yeah, I remember that thing. Didn't get it with this game, but I remember having it, like,
yeah,
close
who's
to when it
this?
came out.
This is Inspector LaGrasse of the Rhode Island Police. I'm sorry to disturb you, but there's been an accident.
Oh,
With
thanks.
your grandfather.
Biggest worry was the
Next
scan
one.
lines. But I think it helps a lot, especially with ways I've adjusted the contrast and brightness on the source footage. It's about as close as I'll get to, like, experiencing a
Miss
CRT
Roivas,
again.
I'm pleased to meet you. I trust you had a pleasant trip?
Unless I'm lucky enough to
Yes,
find one where
suppose
I
so,
am.
considering.
Yes, my condolences. This is most unpleasant. It's a shame we couldn't meet under brighter circumstances.
Yes, it is. Can we get this over with, please?
Of course, this way. But I must warn you, it's not a pleasant sight.
Too true. Too true.
I'm afraid there's not much to see.
Yeah, I feel bad for Silicon Knights. Not Dennis Dyack specifically, just the rest of that studio.
Miss Roivas,
They had talent. This
that
game proves it.
grandfather, Edward.
And Legacy of Kain.
Yes, it's him. He's wearing our family ring. I don't understand. Why are you showing me this? Can't you check dental records or something? What is wrong with you?
Ooh boy.
I'm sorry. It's my job, lady. You're the only living relative, and no, we can't check dental records. There's no head. Ah, none of this makes sense. There's no sign of intrusion, and there was certainly a lot of force used here. I have never seen anything like this in my 20 years on the force. We have no evidence except for the body, and what's left doesn't say much.
Yeah, well, we talk about some parts of Twin Snakes.
You better find out who did this.
Not necessarily with, like, praise or anything like
There
that.
must be some clue in this old mansion revealing what happened. I want answers.
So do I. I wish I had some.
Ah, yes, shocked by her grandfather's mysterious death and frustrated at the incompetence of the local police. If there's anything that I'll never forget with this game is that the person involved with writing the text must have been having a field day with this. Yeah, weirdly enough, this was mine as well. Yeah. Even though, like, I didn't really, like... I wasn't introduced to playing it, just knowing about that this existed. And that, like, I was curious about playing, even though kind of at the time I was very hesitant about anything horror-related. True, yeah. This and Bloodborne both are pretty much the best, and they don't have anything to do directly with Lovecraft, just real inspired by it, and, like, just the whole concept of cosmic horror. Oh, yeah. I think I'll, like, just get a bit more flavor text before I just go straight to the next character, because I already, like, know, like, all the puzzle solutions and, like, where to go. There's a reason for the deliberate interlacing? Hey, don't shit talk the scan lines. I've worked my goddamn best to make it work, okay? They're beautiful. Good to see you too, Selnar. Okay, got the little dresser key, which was not for whining at all. It really is a great game, yeah. And just to do it for the fun of it right now, stupid key just had to break. Honestly, she's very lucky that, like, it broke and that, like, one half of it wasn't forever stuck in the keyhole. That would just, like... Well, maybe it wouldn't completely cut, like, your progress through this game short as long as you had, like, something strong enough to bust the door open. Yeah, between that and Remake, it's like I definitely went through this game first before I ever got to Remake, just because it took me a little bit longer before I got my head around using tank controls, and then, like, the rest of those old games pre-RE4 just clicked. And yeah, Remake is so good. I'd kind of struggle in the end to, like, classify this game as traditional survival horror, more like horror-themed adventure game, but I guess that could be, like, for later when getting deeper in. But it still does horror moods, like, both of those games do them very well. Introduction to horror being a purple lunchbox is kind of funny. Yeah. I always love looking back at these little things in this room because, with the benefit of hindsight, you realize that all of these particular details are foreshadowing. And a sword we get to use, because why not? Oh yeah, last chapters definitely... they do kind of, like, show the larger problems of the game systems. Especially second to last one onward, where you're like, you are just so decked out. Yeah, I kind of like the combat here as well. Like, yeah, body targeting was definitely the cool part. Fun trivia, it was short enough that you could lift it straight up from its sheath with your arm on the same side. That's cool, yeah. I'll actually, now that you mention that, because I know what goes on in this next cutscene, I'll pay attention to see if Pius actually does that. Chances are probably not, because there's always going to be details like that that get missed in the process of game stories and cutscenes, but who knows. Oh, he doesn't? Okay. I guess that makes sense. But then again, Pius's helmet, like, isn't technically accurate to what his rank actually is supposed to be. Or even his name, for that matter. Like, at least half of it is reserved for, like, what would normally be, like, be an emperor in Roman times.
Come to understand, or you will perish.
Uses a crossbody draw. Yeah, that makes sense.
To think that once I could not see beyond the veil of our reality. To see those who dwell behind. My life now has
Oh, I
purpose,
love Richard Doyle's voice.
for I have learned the frailty
He
of
does such a
flesh
good job here.
and bone.
All the voice
I was
actors do.
once a fool.
And it still amuses me to no end that so many of them have crossover with the English voices in Metal Gear.
Viris conservandi. Facusatis aquae sumat, et animus eorum confirma. Pugna huis, dia sit modo prima multarum. Si inceptum conficiamus.
Yeah, I guess thinking about it, I could see that. Well, like, I never thought of Elia's voice as being totally bad, but, like, it's definitely not pushed into the same weight that, like, some of these other voice actors pull with their characters.
Our emperor's beliefs, or his orders. But if we are to retrieve the artifact, then we must be strong and patient.
Oh yeah, with like the breadth of like the story that it's going for, like you have no idea what you're in for at the start. Yes, follow the disembodied voice. Yep, it's an instance of reusing assets in a way that totally makes sense and actually works. It was smart that they did that, considering how long like this game's development went for, and changing platforms partway through. Yeah, kinda is. Though surprisingly still more smooth than, like, what some of the things that, like, were present in the N64 version. I mean, that one, it had straight up fixed camera angles like the old Resident Evil games. Didn't have, like, the very cool, like, moving transitioning camera, which helps, like, a lot with how this game doesn't use tank control. So when you're moving down a corridor, it ends up working a lot more naturally. I definitely like that part, and it's like if Capcom had not gone the direction they did with RE4 and totally like doing the paradigm shift that game did, something closer to what they were planning with like 3.5, or just that more resembles like what this did with its camera and movement, would have been like a just as good step forward. Off with your head, your left arm, and your right. Love how they just like pop it out into thin air with like no summoning animation. Just you get close enough, that just triggers the spawn. Correct, he doesn't, because that mechanic's still not come quite into play yet, since we're only dealing with like just the low tier Mantarok guys. That and, gameplay conceits. They gotta dole these things out piece by piece. True. Ooh, yeah, from like that perspective, it totally is. You're right, yeah. Yeah, there's a reason for why things are specifically like this with Pius. Alright. Second block. Okay. Man. Just thinking about this game's history and like the fact that it was on N64. I've actually been thinking about it a bit more lately, funny enough, because of the leak of the N64 build of Dinosaur Planet that happened like last weekend. That was quite a surprise, and just reminded me how like supposedly the N64 build for this game got similarly quite far along as well. Oh yeah, definitely I'll do that. In fact, I'll take a quick break once I've mopped up all these zombies to look through the inventory text. The three choice at the end of the Pius thing, what did they signify? Huh. Actually, I am slightly confused, I guess, by like the wording of it, if I'm being honest. But yeah, let's look at this. Oh yeah, of course. Like, I was definitely, yeah, I guess my mind was kind of like thinking of the details as being like something else. Because yeah, that whole thing at the end of his chapter is you picking the alignment that you and the rest of the characters are going to be facing off against. Short double-edged sword with a sharp triangular point. Designed primarily for hacking and chopping at the enemy, but could be used to pierce armor as well. I mean, that's just signs of an all-around good sword. Yeah. Blood red. Ghostly blue. And insipid green. I love that detail. Insipid green. You know, the text writer for this game just like... I feel like the way I see that his or her process went with that was just... They did a first pass with as dry and straightforward as they did with the text. And then when they decided, okay, how can we make this more flavorful? Just sat down with a big-ass thesaurus and was like... looking up all sorts of like synonyms that they could use that were like not commonly used, just to give it that extra otherworldly and cosmic horror flavor. That's how I like to imagine it went, because there's some fantastic terms in here that get used. Saw that ice jet ski thing that I hated as a kid and was like, yeah, I would have hated this too. Kinda, yeah. It's funny though. It's like the parts that are like directly carried over into the into Star Fox Adventures are definitely still kind of the same, but just the way everything's presented, like, feels way easier to get behind. Just because Adventures always just had that feel when you went through it, like it was confused about itself. You couldn't really say the same for Dinosaur Planet because they were confident at the time that that's the story and, like, the game that they wanted to make. Lots of purple prose, definitely. And yeah, it comes down to, like, they sat down with all of his works and stripped out all the racism. Pretty much. Hence why this is, like, one of the best cosmic horror-themed horror games ever. It's up there with Bloodborne. Alright, now we got all 4 blocks. Time to slot these in. Aged remarkably well, though at the same time I could also use like a different perspective on that, which is it's always been that good, you know? Because I think like the tech will clearly age, no matter what. But I think it says a lot to, like, what the devs accomplished along with Nintendo's guidance, that they were able to like make the design of this game as great as it was. And that's even after having to like rein in some of like what I'm sure were the Dennis Dyack isms that just like were trying to creep in at some point. I still remember reading through like the old stuff that he was saying about even the original version and how there were going to be like 120 unique spell combinations, and I'm like, yeah, sure, good luck with that. Chances are 3/5 of them are just all stuff that use a bunch of Paragon runes. Okay. This was always a bit silly though, just because even when I first played it, and from like learning about it online, I always knew that this like limb targeting system was in, but it's so silly that that it starts teaching you about this when you've already clued into how it works. The 120 combinations do include all the Paragon spam. Yeah, I figured. I want to say that like but I still don't think it actually came out to a full 120. It got close though. Like because I recall like at some point in my life actually doing a full count of all the spell combinations in the final game, and it was high, just not 120 high. Unless I'm misremembering and I'm just losing more math skills as I grow older. Alright. Area's clear. Now we get to go to the final room of this chapter. Alright, here it is. Time to choose. Time to choose a rune that, even before starting the stream, I still did not come to a decision on which one I want to go with. Like, instinct for me would just to go with Xelatoth to start, because, I mean, if I'm showing this for the internet, I would at least like to go up against the most enemies that'll cause the most, like, sanity drain. But, I mean, there's also good reasons for, like, checking out Chattur'gha or Ulyaoth. Especially when you get to the cutscenes that involve them. Well, let's just look at the little flavor text for each. A red clawed worm. Who's my favorite? I'm not sure. Huh. Because it's like... I mean, like, there's obviously differences based on which you choose, but it's, like, not as, like, significantly, like, divergent as you would hope, you know? Mostly, obviously, just, like, enemy changes and such. A pale blue statuette. And then a dark green emerald. A warped angel. Yeah, that's funny, because I always remembered people talking about how Xelatoth's alignment was technically the easiest, while Chattur'gha was the hardest, because of just how beefy his minions are in comparison. But yeah, I mean, I think I'll go with Ulyaoth. I'm at least thinking about the cutscenes later on, and while like I'll be remiss like to pass up on schizophrenic Jennifer Hale, but if I recall, Richard Doyle does voice Ulyaoth, and Ulyaoth's voice and just condescending tone every time he speaks is so good. So yeah, we'll go with Ulyaoth. All right, our fate is sealed. Good job, you idiot. What would make you sell your soul to an eldritch abomination? Ideally nothing.
Eons have passed.
Depends on what that relationship with said eldritch abomination would entail.
All at once,
Like, I think that'd be the part that I'd be more worried about first, as opposed to like what sort of material or immaterial thing I would get out of the deal.
No mountain too high, no city too far. Face me, and you shall surely perish.
We got the tome. Yeah, just looking at the little description. Definitely not. Because chances are, even if I did take that and tried to have the stipulation of it being an alt account, it would probably not be allowed. They would have... Said abomination would have to make sure that, like, that everyone knows it's me, and I can't handle that pressure. It's been made from fragments of human skin and bone, endowed with magical powers. Cool, I see no negative side effects from continuing to read this thing. Let's get a new page. Oh yeah, before I forget. Save this. Because I'm pretty sure anyone who's played this game can attest to, like, forgetting to save, like, at some point in the game, and then you go a long time, then die, and realize that this game does not have any autosave whatsoever. It's not fun when that happens. It's not. Alright. Time for Binding of the Corpse God.
I cannot say what was the true beginning, nor am I sure of its end. So perhaps here is the best place to start. I am reminded of ideas I first
4
encountered
gods,
in
3
Sir
circles of
James
power, and
George
12
Fraser's book,
spell
The
types,
Golden
of which
Vow,
3 are
A
circle locked.
Study in Magic
Correct.
and Religion. We are overwhelmed by a very human need to weave a web of meaning where there may be none. Since time immemorial,
Alright.
ancient peoples have dressed up their lack of knowledge as gods and demons. I have discovered that sometimes the fates of gods and mortals intertwine, and legends are born.
Thy time is done, great ancient. Forever in shadow will you be master of chaos, and to fade to nothing in obscurity will be thy fate. My master has
One thing that will
many
always be
years
easy to
of
tell with
wisdom.
this game and, like,
It is the true
its
core
technical
of
limits
all things.
is when you can
That
see,
we
like,
now must be
scenes of the
king
outdoors,
amongst the
and it's
beings of
clearly just a
flesh and
JPEG.
blood.
You have a great
There actually are 121 spells in the game? Oh, okay, I can see that. I guess, yeah, because I think when I last counted, I didn't really make much of an attempt of, like, counting every single different type of, like, the summon spells, because that's, like, the ones that is, like, where, like, they're circle locked. Okay, yeah, I guess that, yeah, because, like, if you don't count, like, the specific ones, that definitely, like, lowers the count in total. Right, yeah. But of course, like, it ultimately comes down to the fact that, like, the ways in which they're different are ultimately very, you know, negligible.
Not even these mythical fables can keep me amused. There has to be something to do around here. I only wish something that fantastic and of higher purpose could happen to me.
You might want to rethink that, Elia. Yes. And of course, the 3 alignments all surrounding the 4th. But no 5th in sight. I still think about that yellow 5th alignment all the time. And just whatever sort of plans they might have had for that thing. Yeah. rock, paper, scissors are less than gun. That's pretty accurate. Oh, man. Yeah. You know, obviously with how, like, the magic system in this game works, and how, like, kind of novel and cool showing the sanity effects is, I'll try and, like, minimize as much of my abusing of the system as I can, at least until I get the Manta Rock rune. Because you know I'm going to. Alright. I get that this is to show you it's a thing, but it always did annoy me that you had to, like, trigger, like, one of those traps as part of the cutscene, and then have to navigate around it, even though most of the time you can just very easily, like, slowly walk around the pressure plates. And the hitboxes are very generous as far as, like, your player model size and where your feet land. Just keep sneaking. Or not. We're home clear. Oh yeah, great. We gotta deal with these Chiturga boys right now. Yep, already know. Lower the sanity, more character will hallucinate. That's actually just one rule I'm gonna stick with right now, is that, like, especially when I get the sanity restore spell, I'm gonna make it so that I'll limit myself to one sanity restore spell per room. The rest I will have to make up with putting the finishing blows on enemies. Just because, you know, it only feels fair to show people what it all looks like when the game starts going real crazy. The bronze necklace. Extinguish the right candle. And presto. Well, only part way, but whatever. That's what the other side of this floor is that we gotta do. Yeah, let's check this. Yeah, well-crafted bronze necklace, resplendent with glowing gems. Lovely. Yeah, it can be used to cast a healing spell, which is definitely nice at this point of the game, if you so need it. Small curve running from the handle makes it better for hacking rather than stabbing. Yeah, I can see that. Man, that healing necklace actually kind of reminds me of how... So, like, on my website, like, where I have, like, a blog in which I just kind of try to once a month write about, like, some old game that I've been playing and kind of talk about it from a certain perspective. I did do my first entry on that was for this game, actually, with the focus being mainly on the like, rather than the sanity effects or the story, it was about the magic system, because I still find it is absolutely the most interesting aspect about it because of how integral it is to the experience, despite how fundamentally busted it is when you understand its workings. And part of that is just because of how, you know, your mana refills when you cast spells. Having a perpetually recharging energy source kind of, like, negates a lot of, like, what this game would be able to qualify as a traditional survival horror. Because you look at Resident Evil or Silent Hill, those are games that deal with very specific finite resources and choices you have to make in using them. And using them well on top of that. True, it doesn't refill at all when standing still. Yeah, but that obviously kind of doesn't change that, like, even when you know, like, what causes it, that doesn't stop you from just doing this repeatedly right now, you know? But yeah, and, like, when I think about, like, that healing necklace, it's like, in my mind, like, how I've hypothesized, like, a more improved magic system for this game without limiting it even more. Like, the idea I would actually have is to make it so that your health meter isn't the health meter that this game says it is. Your red, blue, and green meters would basically be like different modifiers for like your character, like their physical constitution, their mental constitution, their sanity, their spirit or whatever, and then just have like a fourth meter that is for actual health that you would use health items for should it actually sustain proper damage. And the other three bars would basically act as their own separate magic meters that you would have to drain one in order to supply the power of a spell of a different alignment. They do have different stat levels, and that is definitely one thing that I do like about the what it tries to do with that, because when you look at like the characters that, you know, where some might have more health than they do magic and vice versa, it makes absolute sense. And some with high sanity are ones that are like of a very strong and clear mind. Oh, right, I forgot. Okay, well that's one that you can't really avoid triggering if you go out that way. But yeah, yeah, nothing to that. It's time to go down to the second level. Take the blowgun, of course. And hopefully I'll still be quick enough to save the NPC and get my sword repaired. But yeah, the magic system it's so interesting, and there's all kinds of different ways that you could like expand or like rethink like its systems without making it something that's totally gimped. Because if it were at the hands of like other developers, they totally would go the route of just trying to further like simplify things, because the alternative of actually putting in more effort to make it closer to like a very complex but rewarding mechanic would be too much. Alright, now get away from them. Oh, damn it. Oh well. Yeah, and I couldn't get back that sanity, but that's fine. He's alive, that's important. So, get our broken sword. And repair. It is nice that even before you get access to proper spells in the magic system, the game does give you moments like that where you actually get to see like other alternative means to get the same effect without casting them yourself. Alright. That's true, yeah. You kill a regular human being, your sanity takes a huge drop. Which I am not gonna try and do. As funny as that may be. I'd at least like to keep my playstyle at least somewhat in character for who I'm controlling. Yep. Yeah, I just really like the look of these environments. Let's actually see if I can. Okay. Oh, so. Oh, there it is. There's the panning that you can do over the whole mural. Yep, and there's old Pius right there. It's a pretty rad, if not kind of goofy, depiction of Mantarok, all things considered. At least I'm assuming it is. Because you can clearly make out a face on that thing. Okay. Onwards and forwards. Dodged all those darts. Okay. Nothing to that. Oh yes, excellent. One of those things I always like to see in other games. Infighting between enemies. You can. The deliberate interlacing on your screen filter for us, plus the game's low gamma prevents us from seeing shit. And I should have you know, like, I've actually, like, the funny thing is that I've adjusted the, like, the brightness in-game as well, like, for this. That's the thing. So, like, a little bit of an insight to, just what I had to go through with, like, setting this up within the last 24 hours. It's mostly the game, yeah, but like even then, like the way that my capture card was like presenting the color range when it's active, like it makes the lights lighter but the darks way darker. But yeah, like when booting this up and before starting the stream, I had to make sure that the in-game brightness was way higher than it actually is by default. Just because if I were playing this normally without the capture card running, like, if that was the case, then, like, the color range would be a lot more normal. But as soon as I start actually, like, capturing it on my PC, it starts, like, changing the color range entirely.
Don't go near it.
So, you are reduced to feeding on flesh and bone, Mantarok. How the mighty have fallen.
It could be that.
You will surely
I mean, as I said before, like, who knows, like, what's a sanity effect or not?
slow.
I mean, the stream title says it all. The CRT filter's a sanity effect.
Leave, young fool. or you
The scanlines are too.
Food for the dead god.
It's almost 19. The birthday's in June. Yeah, it definitely was a summer game. Yeah. Summer 2002. That's when I actually first got my GameCube.
Flesh and blood.
Basically, it was like a thing that I got for the summer once the school year was done.
Eternal darkness. I give you a gift in return for an obligation. The gift is your life, sweet dancer. The obligation is this. You hold one of Mantarok's hearts. The essence of the corpse god. The summit is a source of grace.
That's cool, yeah.
From those people, you must defend it, lest they use it to destroy what little brightness your world has left in it. Guard it well.
Oh wow, you had a Japanese system. Oh, nice. You haven't lived till you played Pikmin in Japanese? Did the Japanese version actually do have like that, like that little Japanese song that I want to say I recall being more like in the marketing for it? Like, was that like actually in the Japanese version itself, or was that just purely for like marketing purposes? I'm already forgetting the name, even though I know it's something so simple. First two games you got for your GCN were Remake and Rogue Squadron 2. That's a good one, yeah. Like, for me, admittedly, like, the first game I got with it was Melee. It's a personal point of gloating smugly, Skies of Arcadia Legends. Yeah, you deserve to gloat about that, though. That thing's expensive. Good God. Yeah. Especially when, like, that version has basically, like, all, like, the DLC that Dreamcast did and, like, more gameplay tweaks to improve it. I just played so many Japanese games at the time that I understood what was yes and no. True, I very much got to that point as well with like the various Japanese PS2 imports that I've played over the years. I just look for those two words first. Oh right, yes. Door's not open yet because, funny enough, I actually did confuse part of it with like when you go back here with a different character. Like, well, when you get to this chamber, that door's already open. But no, you gotta take this little metal staff and take it to a place where you can use as a lever. Yeah, admittedly, I've not played Skies of Arcadia either. Like, be it the Dreamcast original or, like, Legends. But it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's definitely one of those things where, in my eventual plans to get all of my game consoles back up here, is that hopefully I can get stuff to, like, install a ODE into my Dreamcast and, like, at least just for novelty's sake, like, play the original on there and see what that's like, because even with the improvements of the GameCube version, it does still feel like a Dreamcast game to its core. Like, it's something that, like, is part of that system's identity. Ended up loving Grandia too, so it's all good. Yeah, that makes sense. You know, you find the games that you enjoy, and like what you enjoy is what matters. But yeah, even then with like how I'm playing this game, I'm technically running it off like a CRT with not a CRT. I meant like off like a soft modded Wii, where I'm just using the Nintendo loader to run it off an SD card. So I mean, like, eventually in the future, I could probably just get an ISO for Skies of Arcadia Legends and just like play that if I want. Okay. Oh, yeah. This hallway was always such a pain to get through. Alright, come on. That is pretty good. Only thing that's been it's only been toppled by the original Nier. Yeah, Nier's so good. It's so good. Oh yeah, of course. Like anything with like having to do with Nier, it's like the character writing that like does it a lot. I imagine Skies of Arcadia definitely has a lot of that in spades. Blue Sky Sega is best Sega, absolutely. Let's actually show this off since I'm a little bit low on health, so there's reason to. What? Are you kidding? Hold on. Unless. What do you mean I can't use this right now? Shit, what am I forgetting about this? Because it's not giving me an equipped option, so. Oh, screw it. We're already near the end anyway. I can run through these traps no problem, especially when the enemies are now gone. Oh yeah, like, the mention of Nier earlier just got me thinking again about that Replicants remake. You need the staff from the Mantarok room, wherever you get killed. Yeah, that's actually the thing. Oh, you mean I need that in order to actually use the thing, the healing necklace? Because like I already grabbed the staff and I used it in that lever in order to open the door. So yes, because it's a lever switch. Oh yeah, like I already did use the lever switch is the thing. Just check one more time. Oh, can't use right now. Whatever. It's completely safe from here on. Door should be open. We can get through the end of Elias' portion and on to one of the absolute best characters. Due to COVID, I lost both my jobs and cannot safely afford the remake. Yeah, that's tough, man. But yeah, you gotta save what you can. Definitely. As for me, like I'm definitely not getting the remake right away. Because like it's funny, even before it was announced, I had actually found a way to get the game running, the Japanese version replicant with an English patch running on RPCS3, the PS3 emulator. But that admittedly, like at the time, like once I found out the remake was happening, I kind of ditched the ROM foolishly, just because I was like, oh, this is coming out in the future, I'll just do that. But yeah, obviously with like money and priorities, it's like, yeah, I'm not really looking to get it right away. And I technically have a job, but it's not like I have a lot of hours for it.
Where is it? I will not ask again, child.
But yeah, I'm just thinking about that remake, and now it's just reinvigorating all those arguments about like Brother Nier or Papa Nier and like which is better. Yeah, I was like that initially, but like over time, it's like it's not that I flip sides. It was like Brother Nier's way better, but I think it's more just the realization that like the core story of Nier is so good anyway that like even if that just the just changing the context of like what the Nier's like familial relation is between him and Yona is like you can change that, and the most that it really like impacts in a lot of ways is like context for like his character development in certain scenes and also specific character interactions. Because I can at least say with Papa Nier that I think his absolute biggest advantage is how fantastic the dynamic is between him and Weiss. I just love the bickering old men tone that goes on between those two. Whereas there are things about Brother Nier that I think do make a bit more sense for certain parts of the core story, like especially with the time skip. Personally, though, I think that's like too small brain. Everyone just going on with the arguments about which of those two is better, when really the remake should have just gone and changed Nier's like and Yona's familial relationships again to something completely different. Gender swap even. Basically what I'm saying is, where the hell's Mama Nier? Oh yes, this chapter coming up is so good. Suspicions of conspiracy. Yeah, they both have like different birthdays in conjunction to having like different years when their stories start, funny enough.
And the puerile meanderings of sentience. Why should you deserve special consideration within it, Augustus, above all else?
I am your servant, my lord. As always. That and nothing more.
Yes, that and nothing more. What revelations do you bring me?
Man, Ulyaoth just has to be the worst boss to work for.
Plan, Augustus? Mantarok is a shadow.
You just have to put up with all of his condescending shit just over and over, just as he talks down to you and everyone else. You're not allowed to ignore it.
Unfortunately, this is beyond your understanding. The binding of Mantarok will seal their fate as its power over us is diminished. Such an irony that the Keeper itself be imprisoned within the walls of its own magic.
But what of its essence? Is that not the core of its remaining power?
Upon my seeping into the corporeal world, I will be the dominant over all, Mantarok included. Your worries are unfounded.
Yeah, that is.
Turn your attention to
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. I
His
mean,
continued presence within the world is
really,
far more
is it any surprise that they'd be model after that, especially when like one of the most immediate like commonalities between like the main characters of Nier and Nier Automata are that that they're characters with white hair. Like that makes sense, especially if they use like Kaine as the basis for like a lot of the female Yorhai androids. Okay. But yeah, that's interesting. Thanks for sharing that.
From my research, it is apparent that the endeavors of mankind,
One of the best chapters of the game,
at the hands
and it comes along so early, and thankfully it
Whenever a
isn't
king
like the
vows
peak
reform,
for the entire game.
the
There's still
ancients
plenty
will
left after
quickly
this, but this is like a
stifle it.
good.
Under the
I always remember
auspices
this
of
as being the
Emperor
part where like
Charlemagne
the
Frank,
game really
the
hooked
new
me.
Holy Roman Empire was at the height of its power.
Hanc mit ad dominum et imperatorum nostrum, carolum magnum francum.
Deliver
non
this to our
decet
Lord and Emperor Charlemagne the Frank. No one.
Oh
will
yeah,
to
that's a
see
good point. Yeah.
by his eyes only, at once.
Well, yeah. I mean, like when you're at that point where like, especially when there are no actual humans left, and it is like androids that like have them like be made to like whatever specs that they need. It's like, yeah, it just highlights further by that point that gender is just a social construct, and there is less and less need for that sort of thing when you're a series of androids designed to liberate the planet from machines.
If this was meant for Charlemagne, then what will become of him? I have to warn him of this treachery.
You go, Cam Clark. Walk into that JPEG of the forest. Oh, yeah. I'll say, of like the 4 main areas that you go throughout the time in this game, I am definitely most fond of the cathedral. And even though like the cathedral parts that we're going through in this chapter are only a fraction of what it ultimately becomes. Unfortunately, we need the bishop's key in order to see Charlemagne. I'm sure we'll get that eventually. Yeah, Cam Clark, 6th gen legend. Yeah, just... Once again, I still always love how so much of this game's voice cast has overlap with Metal Gear. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Yeah, and that's always important, you know? You know, he just sees her as herself. Yes, let's open this casket.
Oh my god, what is it? This devil's work.
Okay, you take care, Selnar.
You have proven what we have feared the most. This poor man has been the victim of great evil. Look how his body has been defiled, as if something has burst out from inside him. Here, take this for your protection. And find the bishop. He must be informed of this horrible discovery.
Ah yes, the Scramasax. Which I, for a while, had consistently kept, like, mispronouncing as Scaramax or something. It's the sort of thing that always felt like a bit of a tongue twister if you tried to read it too quickly. Frank and Saxon weapon relies on a hefty blade to deliver deadly cutting and slashing attacks. And yeah, no handguard. So yeah, if you were using a sword like this in real life, you'd better make sure your hands are on the handle and not like anywhere close to where the blade starts. Oh, sweet, this place. Here be pious. Nothing from the waist up. And there's Elia. There's a channel doing decent CRT stuff if you're interested. Oh, it's like, as in, oh, it's for capturing gameplay. Yeah, that'd be interesting, because like, admittedly right now I don't have a CRT with me. It's like, all I really have for me right now is just like, trying to approximate what I remember with like this whole overlay setup I got. But yeah, if it's something for like the future, if I get another CRT, and like, and that has good information on how to like, capture footage from that while still playing on it and recording to another like system, like that would be invaluable. Because I always feel like I've seen bits and pieces on how to do it, but it never seemed like enough for like a general purpose. Most I seem to recall was always like just bits from like Melee players bringing it up, just because of course they were. They're fucking Melee players. Channel's called Gigaboots. Okay, I'll make a note of that. Series is Analog Gaming. Okay. Cool. Okay, Gigaboots, Analog Gaming. Good to know. Don't mind all the screaming faces. This is perfectly normal. Just take the stupid book already. This is a fun setting for sure. Yeah. Oh, and Anthony's not looking too good right at the moment. You always wanted Pius for Smash? Yeah, I can see that. Admittedly, I always wanted Alex, you know? Just because she was the main character and all that. And based on how things in the final boss go, she could have had moves that, like, has her channeled, like, the spirits of all the other characters with their weapons. Yeah. I don't take, like, the predictions or wishing for like, specific characters in Smash quite seriously like everyone else on the internet does, in which they are full-on lunatics about. But I still get a kick out of just, like, throwing out my suggestions for the crazy, silly, dumb, obscure characters that no one would ever think would or should deserve to get a spot as a playable character. Yeah. Yeah, I got that as well, along with the fact that, like, I've made peace with the fact that certain characters that are assist trophies are just gonna stay that way. Yeah, if those were the show up, neat. And, like, likewise for me, if Raymond Bryce from Disaster Day of Crisis suddenly became a playable character, it'd be, like, even better. But I think that would require Nintendo and Monolith to actually care about acknowledging that that game existed, like, in a more meaningful context. Especially when North America, like, Nintendo of America just decided to skip that game entirely. When there really would have been no harm in bringing it over when they did, back in 2008. Like, come on. That game is just pure goofy fun. Rune Get. Alrighty. Yeah, pretty much. that is... Yeah, that's big companies to a T. With any sort of major success. Oh, God, yeah, Studio Japan. Yeah, that is sad to see. Admittedly, upsets me more than, like, the 6-month thing with, like, celebrating Mario's 35th anniversary, which is, like, it's dumb, but it's the sort of thing where I look at it and go, like, yeah, all this really does is just further show that piracy is the only way to, like, maintain true game preservation. But, like, Japan Studio, like, what's happening to them is so unfortunate. Like, it's dispersing a lot of talent that could, like, put forth some really cool, unique stuff if you let them. And now it's just them having to, like, find other places that'll let them do that, or just be do support work for the other big Sony studios. Alright. Just mix these all ahead of time. Guess what, guys? Bloodborne 2 and Team Silent back on Silent Hill. Yeah, whatever. Oh, man. I find it kind of frustrating that when the news was coming out, certain places I was going to were like, the way that they showed how mad they were about Studio Japan being, like, broken up was like, well, maybe you should have let them make Bloodborne 2. And it's like, A, you're projecting that they even wanted to, like, go straight into making a Bloodborne 2, and B, like, chances are they probably would not have wanted to do it without From Software's involvement to begin with. Like you very much oversell their, like, their value and, like, contribution to that when it was just as much From Soft responsible for that, if not more. Yeah, and as for Silent Hill, it's like, yeah, the people that are trying to keep wishing for that stuff back, it's just sad. Yeah. The only Silent Hill those fans are gonna get is what they see in their restless dreams. Oh yeah, and I love this sword right here. This little two-hander. Just, it's so good. You can cleave off a zombie's torso with a vertical swing. Yeah, don't think about it too hard. Alright, yeah, the two-edged sword. Commonly known as a bastard sword, or hand and a half. It's so good, yeah. When Dev Hell games meant 5 years of development, good old days. Yeah, and even then, when those games were in Dev Hell for 5 years, Duke Nukem was still, like, in that, and going on for even longer. Oh, man. Now let's get some of these things over here. There we go. Got all of the pieces for the enchant item spell. Owned by Pitch for the worst guy who could own Duke. Totally. Yeah. Especially when it's like, oh man. It's funny too because it's like it's less about like what he's specifically done in terms of like games for Duke Nukem, because like most of the damage had already been done with how 3D Realms just putzed around for so much of Forever's development time that like Gearbox's actual involvement was very minimal on that. But yeah, just the fact that they own it and really are not doing anything meaningful with it, not even like showing off any old builds of Duke Nukem Forever that would be interesting to have for like, you know, just for archival purposes. But no, it's too busy doing dumb magic tricks and having illicit material on a USB drive left behind in medieval times. Oh yeah, and screwing people out of pay bonuses right as the pandemic hit. That's always fun. Okay. Right, so... Oh yeah, so I've already got... Okay, yeah, that's right. The last rune I actually need to go with the Codex is the Chaturga rune. Which I'm gonna have to find another enemy to get it out of. Wherever it is. Look at my boy, all pale and gray. Yeah, it's sad what happens to Anthony in this chapter. He's just trying to do the right thing. Okay, I'm actually trying to remember, like, where the Chaturga rune even is. He certainly wants to vibe to Bauhaus. Oh, man. Yeah, okay, so... but he'll never vibe. Oh, dear, man. Now I'm... at least you're here to kind of make me chuckle with this, because right now I'm feeling like a complete idiot, not knowing where, like, the last piece that I need for this enchant item spell is. This is the streamer's curse right here. Even when it's for a game that you already clearly know. It's all good, yeah. I figured as much, so... Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a case for, like, it being ultimately better. Like, that's kind of the net positive for it. But yeah. It's kind of hard to say. I mean, the part that's, like, more of a pain with this game than, like, the lack of handliness is just the lack of autosave, you know? Because that's something that's very easy to take for granted and just have it bite you real bad. If you, like, die at some point and you've not saved in a long time. Dope. I had to at least do this once. Just clumsily. Oh! Oh, goddammit, I'm an idiot. That's where it was. Right, of course. Because not all runes are housed within inside an enemy. Well, I mean, this is fine, because we're right where we need to anyway. Just gotta establish, you know, just gotta set up our quick spell. Set that to Y. Repair this. And we're good to go. And yeah, like, I think it kind of depends for me as far as, like, getting lost, as far as preferring that. Because I do think some games over time I've definitely found myself preferring that instead. I think, like, if it's situations like this, where your environment, like, the space you have to operate in is, like, small and condensed enough that, like, the idea of having to cover all your bases and figure out what to do next doesn't feel so daunting. I think that makes sense there. The other, I think, is like, if it is big, then hopefully you have like a good like way of describing landmarks to the player and like teaching them how to follow directions that aren't just following a way marker on your map. Like that's something that I learned to appreciate a lot more with Morrowind when I played that more and more over the years. At the time, it was like I pretty much had to have a walkthrough all the time because I was pretty bad as a kid just trying to like parse like what the written directions were in the quests, as far as like which turn to take at which path and like what to look for in the distance. But eventually I got better at that as I was older, and it made exploring that world a whole lot more interesting. Totally, yeah, like if you miss something important just because it's not telling you clearly or you're not like understanding things on your own end clearly, and then it takes a long time to get back to the correct path, that can absolutely like be a negative on the experience. Alright, we finished filling all 3 urns with this with the liquid from this scum-encrusted spout. This is absolutely one of my favorite little text boxes. It doesn't have the term effluvial grime, but a lot of these words are pretty up there. I love it. Okay. Now we can actually do that pressure plate puzzle. It is fun. Yep. And we got all 3. Now to chase after the bishop, Paul Eiding. Yes, I still remember that's his voice actor. He voiced quite a number of people in this game.
So, you have come to return my book. Very well then. For your efforts.
Oh shoot, I should have thought to like cast the enchant item spell on my sword before going through the room. Oh, whatever. I'll just do this. Yeah, it's funny too because like he voices 2 characters in this chapter. He voices the bishop, and then he voices like one of the monks that you who basically like mocks you like in the end cutscene. So it was always kind of this weird thing where it was like, hold on, I thought I killed you. Alright. The corrosive quality of yellow magic, whose alignment we'll still never ever know. I could probably imagine what it might be, but that'd be like getting into... I think that would go beyond just saying what my interpretation of the story is, and you go straight into like my own kind of fan rendition. Because it's the sort of thing with this game where it's like, I don't need a sequel, but I wouldn't mind one that does like an expanded, reworked sort of retelling of these events, but to kind of include more of the original ideas, you know, with like the all 5 ancients instead of just the 4. And like, I guess just kind of like the weird ideas I had is like, funny enough, because we had the discussion about Nier a little while ago and how like Yoko Taro's games are all known for like the way that he does like different endings, and how basically they're all just different playthroughs on different timelines. Like, I'm almost like imagining like my ideal like expanded version of this type of story would be like basically acknowledging the fact that yes, each time you pick one of the 3 ancients, it splits to a different timeline. But then once you go through all that, you start getting into other universes where like Mantarok or the 5th Yellow Ancient has more of a presence. I don't want a sequel mostly because I can't figure out who'd handle it and do a decent job. Yeah, pretty much. Like, I can at least say that the first step to making it somewhere decent is to not get Dennis Dyack involved. You know? I think that's something that everyone can agree with. And especially when he was already so preoccupied with his own spiritual successor and it not going anywhere, I think it's for the best. But I mean, like, yeah. I mean, Nintendo would still have to be involved to some degree because they own it. It'd just be a matter of, like, which development house would be able to do it justice, you know? Because Retro's not been doing anything of, like, of note other than, like, still apparently working on Metroid Prime 4 after they had to restart development. And Next Level Games, which has been bought recently, I mean, like, they could do it, but I think they'd definitely have to learn a lot about the subject matter in order to approach it right. Did Amy Hennig work on this game? I don't think she did. No. Like, I know why you think that because of her involvement with Legacy of Kain, but I think she was already on to working on other things. Yeah, because, like, obviously, I don't know every single name in the credits off the top of my head, outside of, you know, like, the voice actors. But I feel like if Amy Hennig was involved, I probably would have remembered that detail. But yeah, if she was up for doing something like this, I mean, I wouldn't complain. And get, like, some other talent devs that could really, like, pull it together. And just have, like, an even more expansive story that leans into the fact that this game has, like, alternate, like, continuities that run parallel to each other. Because that's the thing, you know? There's a reason for why, like, the game encourages you to play 3 times with the different alignments. It's because it's all part of Mantarok's big plan where Pius picks each alignment in 3 different continuities, and then once all of those ancients get killed in their own timeline, he just inexplicably converges them. And now our boy went from goth to black metal. Yeah. Yep, and those styles, even on a normal person, I'm sure would be absolutely terrifying to anyone in at this point of history, with no context. All right, time to kill a horror. Let's see if it'll actually kill me first before I end up. You know, actually, I'll let it kill me just to kind of show what happens, you know? Or not. I spoke too soon. Time to burn the church. Oh, man. It's ridiculous how fast that thing went down, and I was using a weaker alignment, technically. But, I mean, that just shows how beastly this two-handed sword is. It's so good. Oh, man. Gotta limp our way back down the stairs. No. Oh, yeah. Chopping off the limbs is fine, but sometimes when you're in crowds like that, it can be practical to just swing wildly. It was strangely easy, yeah. Part of that, you know, and it becomes even more so due to the aforementioned, like, magic system. Oh yeah, I definitely felt the same, like, I definitely had the hardest time when it came to using to getting through the old Resident Evils. Silent Hill less so, though it still had, like, its own sort of disorienting and, like, difficult aspects to it, you know? Especially when you had to go through, like, all the dark areas and, like, being mindful of all the monsters that could, like, corner you with your terrible combat. Oh, poor Anthony.
You are a fool for trying to save him, Anthony. His fate was decided many
RE was combat, yeah. It at least helped in, like, I think, RE's case that, like, most of your weapons you dealt with were totally firearms, where Silent Hill always had a mix. Don't worry, Ark, he'll come back as the Crow. Yeah. Oh, he at least comes back in some form when we go back to this location at a later point in time, which was always oh, that was definitely another memorable moment. But yeah, so what time is it? Oh, yeah, we're like less than an hour and a half in already, which is like, yeah, I like my immediate plan was just to go through like the first 3 chapters, but now that we are here and like, I might as well do some stuff around the mansion as Alex before going straight into the next chapter, which I think I'll still end up saving for the next stream. Yeah, I think I'll still stick with that, because I got no reason to keep pushing like the length to absolutely be somewhere between 2 and 3 hours. If it's at least like an hour and a half, that's more than fine. Like, I'd rather like keep my stamina, you know? But for now, let's take advantage of... Everybody remembers the blue screen and bathtub scares, of course. Yeah, though the blue screen was still random because of how it was a sanity effect. I think, though, yeah, the bathtub is definitely... I think it's pretty much as early as once you get up to the 2nd floor and, like, repair the key. Which, for the record, I am not going to show off that jump scare. Just because it's a jump scare. I don't like it. And you people at home can look it up for yourselves. I'll at least say, to Silicon Knight's credit, that was the only jump scare of that type that they actually bothered to put in. Coward. Yeah, so what? Gotta love the blood dripping down the paintings. That's totally part of the decor. Also, the moving statue head. They worked hard to get that mechanism working. It's pretty impressive. Some revolver ammunition that we're not going to use yet. A little something that we can't do until we get a particular spell. A bathroom in there, which that's trouble. And then just keep going down this hallway. Alright. And there's the next chapter page, which we'll save for next time, once I'm done scouring all over these places again. Just for good times. It's almost like a museum, yeah. It's definitely one of those rooms that has the most colonial flair to it. Makes sense too, considering we play as Maximilian Roivas during like the 18th century, during his chapter. Oh yeah, speaking of the devil, that's him. What's up, Benjamin Franklin? Oh, man. Man, that's a concept. The American Founding Fathers fighting against cosmic horrors. That'd be something. Alright. So we got everything that I'm willing to kind of show up here. Well, mostly. Just kind of looking again at all these paintings. I'm trying to remember, like... Yeah, this is the one that has details on it. Time has taken its toll on the surface, which is soiled with dirt and scratches. The British were an eldritch horror, of course. Well, the Americans are ultimately spawned from the British, though, is the thing. So I guess in reality, that makes us Americans the real horror. And based on how things have been going in the world, that totally makes sense. Think of it like Cthulhu and his hybrid children. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Grand piano stands here, awaiting the hands of a decent musician. Man. It still impresses me the more that, like, I kind of look back at, like, the mansion and what you're able to explore. The fact that you're able to go through, like, most of, like, the key areas very early on, and you see a lot of things that are all, like, clear, like, foreshadowing things that you'll eventually use them for. It feels so interesting, and almost in contrast to how it always felt when you went through the Resident Evil games, like the old ones and their maps, because you had to always deal with just how everything was meticulously locked with specific keys. But here, like, just, yeah. This game's whole structure is just so cool and interesting. Just all the stuff you learn from playing the other characters, it comes back as knowledge that you can then use throughout the rest of this mansion. Definitely better writing on average, for sure. Because, like, it's definitely trying to, like, be a lot more respectable in how it presents it as opposed to being like a B horror movie. Well, yeah, that was definitely like the turning point. RE4 like knew what it was trying to be and just like rolled with it. And like part of that, I'm pretty sure, was definitely helped along by the fact that the Paul W.S. Anderson movies had been going on for a couple years, and like that first one clearly inspired it in a couple key places. I always love that family tree. Just for like the morbid detail that they somehow felt the need to put a hangman's noose on that thing. Just, man. Like even when Alex's grandfather was still alive and living here, like this whole place still feels like it is perpetually dour no matter what. That's the bastard Roivus. We don't talk about him. Ah, yes, their history. It might be fair to say that like most of them were bastards to some degree, because it's like there's a lot of pretty family history as shown here. Mediterranean immigrants. They were shunned by other settlers in North America, suspected of witchcraft, convicted during the hunts. Yeah. Not a fun time. Not a fun time for humanity. Yeah. Cool, so 11-10 boys up in here. Yeah. Yeah. And admittedly, even though like the Mediterranean representation is mostly just like in the family genealogy and like less so with like the current character. Because yeah, you look at Alex, she's clearly just white as hell, but I mean, she's still got all kinds of different like backgrounds in her ancestry. Even if she does look like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Okay. Oh yeah, there are white Arabs, of course. Okay. And oh wow, I can't believe that like I was supposed to, before this stream started, I was supposed to make a mental note for myself that after every chapter I would save the game. I did that after Pius, but I didn't do it after Elia. Oh, man. Like, that would have been... I mean, thank goodness that Anthony's chapter makes it that you can't game over whatsoever. But, oh, man. I hope for my sake and everyone that watches these streams or, like, the VODs afterwards that they don't ever have to see me replay huge portions again. Like... if I screw up and die, because that's not fun at all. But yeah, I think that's enough for time right now. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, so this will be it for the stream then. I'm thinking, just because I've got like the energy and time right now, at least for this weekend, that I'm gonna see about like having this like every night following this. So like tomorrow will be like the next 3 chapters, and then the next 3 chapters after that on Sunday, and then hopefully Monday if I'm not too exhausted once I'm done with work that day. We'll see. It's just, yeah, with the like during the afternoons, things have been getting pretty hectic here, with like a lot of people coming and going and doing stuff to kind of help out with my sister and our current situation. But the evenings, like by this point, I've got so much energy that I've been kind of rearing to go on playing some of these old games again and just streaming them online for the few that are interested in seeing. But yeah, thanks again for popping in for this, Wrath, as well as Selnar for the at least for like the first half that he was around for. So yeah, good night, people.